Hello YouTube, Liverpool fan in Japan here, the Miyazaki man, Sai. Just like our little maestro in a number 10 position who is ginger under the right lights, I have also gone red for the summer. It's not about my hairstyle, no matter how luxurious and silky soft it may be. This video is around how Ruben Amorim is different than Jurgen Klopp. They share some similarities, so for example, Jurgen Klopp came in and his famous quote, "I'm going to turn doubters into believers, and we still need to believe to this day that Cody Gakpo will come good and it will win the league," etc. Ruben Amorim also came into the Sporting hot seat after only 13 games, just over half a dozen at Braga, but they identified a top talent and paid a huge sum for a manager. I think it was like the third or fourth biggest transfer fee for a manager to bring him into the Sporting hot seat, even though he had history with Benfica, Sporting's rivals. He came in and a question from the reporter said, "So you're a bit inexperienced, how are you going to turn this around? Are you scared it might ruin your career, etc.?" And he said, "But what if it goes well?" And that's exactly my mantra as well. All the people who say it's difficult to succeed Klopp in his legacy at Liverpool, everyone has their own chapter to write. Remember that Klopp did not gain success straight away. It took 2 to 3 years to really embellish that squad and make it his own team, bringing in Van Dijk, bringing Alisson, selling Coutinho. Remember that iteration? We had Sturridge as well, Alberto Moreno, all that kind of stuff. Even Benteke was here around for the Klopp era, Mamadou Sakho. So give Amorim some time to make his mark. However, Amorim is definitely his own man. He is not a Jurgen Klopp. For one, Jurgen Klopp is 56 years old, and Amorim, correct me if I'm wrong, he's around 39. I need to look it up. I think he's 39 years old. However, that in itself is a big contrast because Klopp, in his aura, in the exuding kind of leadership and respect, he's also very, very tall, by the way, Jurgen Klopp. People look to him as a father figure. He mentioned he's a friend of the players, but not their best friend. A friend, but needs to be strict when necessary as well. He lays down the law. You respect him. You respect all that he's achieved in the game. In his global standing, Jurgen Klopp is right at the pinnacle alongside Pep Guardiola, etc. Right? Mourinho, Ferguson, all the legends of the past. However, Amorim is still yet to make his impact. Sure, he won the league with Sporting after, however many X years. He's going to win the league hopefully again this year to show his credentials. He is his own man and he's got ambition, and he's really, really going to go into the changing room and command the respect of the dressing room through his tactical innovation, his quality, what he expects of the players, and his vision for the Liverpool team. He's not like a Klopp who just exudes that aura. He has to win the respect by showing them through his communication and interaction that he is a manager of substance that people can rally behind and get behind and really show what he's about. Additionally, on the training pitch, and here's another difference to Jurgen Klopp, he is a former player of a higher caliber than Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp was, old school back in the day, probably utility player, tall centre back, roamed forwards every now and again. So-so as a player, he would admit it himself. But Ruben Amorim was a pretty decent player, hard-working, grafting, a kind of pseudo-Gattuso, right? Just really getting his foot in, getting stuck in. But because of injury concerns, he retired early, I assume around 32 years old. He really will get stuck in on the football pitch and he will be yelling, commanding, barking the orders and really hands-on on the training, not just delegating to a staff, whereas Klopp has actually handed over a lot of the hands-on training to Pep Lijnders. It's Pep Lijnders shouting on the training ground. You always hear Pep Lijnders' voice. Even on the sidelines, you hear Pep Lijnders' voice. Do you hear the siren outside? Police, Nino, they're going to arrest Pep Lijnders. He's too loud. It's always Pep Lijnders, the energy, the vibrance, and Lijnders himself in the interview, in the leaving interview, thanked Jurgen Klopp for giving him so much delegated responsibility to look after the Liverpool team, train them, coach them on a daily basis, and Lijnders and Victor Manos and Peter Krawietz come up with the training regime, the cones, the drills, the rondos, on a daily basis to achieve the function that Klopp intends. Klopp oversees everything. He's kind of like the Michael Edwards of the coaching staff, but it's actually Pep Lijnders who has an eye for detail to make sure that the players stick to instructions and commands them and commends them as well when they do well, right? But Jurgen Klopp oversees the thing more silently from the side in a more kind of passive role. Amorim will get hands-on and stuck in. Just to harp on a different standing globally in the game as well, Ruben Amorim is going to want to win the Champions League, win the Premier League, win the FA Cup, win the Carabao Cup, win the Club World Championship, win the Super Cup. Klopp has won it all, baby, except from the Europa League, which hopefully he will win this season. What a dream come true if it's against Xabi Alonso in the final, the successor against the old dog, the old guard, El Kloppo, El Kaiser. I think Klopp will do him in because Liverpool are better than Leverkusen. Sure, Leverkusen aren't unbeaten this season, but Liverpool, we're top of Premier League, and Premier League is the hardest league in the world. Bayern Munich self-immolated because they signed Harry Kane, which means guaranteed a trophy this season, right? Ka-ching. But enough facts aside, I mean, Leverkusen almost got knocked out by Karabag, even though, sure, last-minute goals is kind of Liverpool's mantra this season as well. Fighting to the last whistle, it's going to be a hard game. I digress a little bit. Back to Ruben Amorim. I think, even though it's not confirmed, but all roads kind of lead to the age of Amorim, and I think Amorim is a really, really good fit for Liverpool. But one thing I would be really excited to hear is his interviews, right? Now, Klopp is tired of the media, tired of the pundits, tired of the press. In his final glorious chapter, his last season here, he's unleashing a little bit and saying whatever the F he wants, because literally Klopp is frustrated and tired, and the media pushes buttons, and he said something about one of the reporters being unfit or something like that. I don't know. Klopp is having a bit of a go, and he's never been the most friendly of managers in terms of talking to media. Sure, he comes up with these one-liners and these German quips as well, and these funny phrases and inspirational phrases as well. For example, against Barcelona, if we're going to lose, we're going to lose in the most beautiful way. Very memorable Klopp quotes. But he isn't the most amicable manager, the most jokey and laugh and friendly with the media, because the media always have an agenda and he's clued onto that. He's not as actively hostile as Kenny Dalglish in his last role was with the media in his Liverpool hot seat, but he's not the most friendly either. Whereas Amorim is really softly spoken, well spoken. He's got a bit of fiery temper and flair, but he does it in a very smart and intellectual and intelligent way. And he's more softly spoken. He's not as tactically minded as Xabi Alonso would be in the hot seat in the press room. But Amorim speaks English, he speaks it very well, and you want to listen to what he says as well. He's not just going to cut off the media, and he's not going to treat the media as an interrogator as well. But you'd imagine that Amorim would be a bit more open in discussing things, obviously a bit political, a bit tactical, playing that mind games with the media. He's not Ange Postecoglou, who's, cheeky chappy, but he is a classy, nice, subtle guy who I think will really make an impression with the media and put us in good standing as well, because sometimes it's good to be in good standing with the media because they'll write the articles and reflect the relationship they have with you, which will reflect you in a good light, which reflects nicely in Liverpool as well, and he can use that to his advantage to deflect things away from the squad or any turmoil or any conflict inside. And Jurgen Klopp is very, very good on taking the mantra onto himself, but Klopp is a very emotional, passionate, outbursts aplenty just through his expression. His expression can tell you 1,000 words, and that mean, glaring stare. He's been in the game too long, and I think he's just tired of the media. But we always respect what Klopp says. He says it like it is, and he represents Liverpool incredibly, incredibly well. And I think there's a subtle difference as well between the German demeanour and the Portuguese demeanour as well. And as I said, Amorim's young. He's still yet to face the actual scrutiny of some of the absolute knobs in the media and some of the awful, god-awful questions. But it'll be fun to see. Let's see how he evolves over time, especially if he's successful, right? You know what Britain's like. They like to build you up to try to knock you down. The England international team, I get knocked down, but I get up again. No, sorry. They build you up to knock you down again. Something like that. I don't know. I digress. So let's look at some tactics and what the differences are between Klopp and Amorim. We know what Klopp is around, your 4-3-3 formation. Second iteration, of course, after Firmino, Mane, Salah, the famous front three workhorses in the midfield, but the main concept is the same. Ultimately, when you have Salah in the team, you get Salah into the half space. The most predominant position of threat is in that half space there for Mo Salah, and Lucho Diaz cutting in there. Striker leading the line, midfielders covering any charging fullback, so your number 8s cover along that side, pressing up high in the pitch. And when you have a maestro like Trent Alexander-Arnold, you get him the ball as much as possible. If it's Conor Bradley, he roams around the outside. If you're overloading the right-hand side, which we sometimes do, sometimes in half space, the midfielder overlaps around the right-hand side, you overload the left, because that's where the goal-scoring threat is, recycle with the midfielders. But ultimately, it's the two half spaces on both sides that is the predominant threat that we try to get our Lucho Diaz or our Mo Salah into, and it gives us the options to overlap or cut inside or switch the play as well. Backed up by very able defenders who are very physical, very pacey and very alert. Midfielders who are workhorses who cover the channel, but it's only this season that we have a bit more quality and can play a bit more possession-based game. 4-3-3, Klopp's ultimate mantra. Is it the most innovative? Probably not, but it suits the personnel that we have available. It's super, super effective on the press, super effective on the counter-attack, and there's not much weaknesses because of the personnel in terms of Konate being able to cover a line, Van Dijk being able to cover a line. Alisson, sweeper keeper, defensive midfield, lighthouse, Hoover, Dyson, playmaker, gives us perspective and vision, plays us in the tight-knit free midfield with Szoboszlai, McAllister, Endo, etc., holding the midfield together, playing the ball through the lines and progressing us into the space. Whilst we don't have the flying wingers of old running down and crossing in, we do like to cross from this half-space position, or in terms of a Trent or a Robertson, first-time ball whipped in as well, in and behind the defence, and we go from there. So Klopp is wedded to the 4-3-3 system, and there's not much room for manoeuvre. On the odd occasion, he'll play a 4-4-2 diamond. On the odd occasion, he might even change it up slightly, but he never really goes into more innovation beyond that. He doesn't really play free at the back. He transitions into there. He doesn't really play with number 10. He tries to get players into the 10 space and pressure and turn over the opposition there, but we do not have an out-and-out playmaker. They transition there from the number 8 position, and we play with wide forwards who transition into the middle, who try to create something in the half spaces. So that is Klopp's mantra. And we're going to reset here into kind of Amorim formation, his kind of 3-2-4-1 formation. I showed you previously in the video how it works. So it's definitely a different philosophy around what each player needs to do. There's a lot more emphasis on the defense drawing out the opposition, making sure that they actually get pressed so they can stretch the pitch, open up the channels so that this defensive player can join into the midfield on the base, and this player has the freedom to go into those wing back roles as well. The midfield is a tight-knit unit, and these four are fairly flexible in where they transition. One can go to the point of the diamond, one can join as a second striker, they can pivot and go where they need to go, and big emphasis on creativity, similar to Liverpool before, coming from your Robertson or your Trent Alexander-Arnold, your Tsimikas, your Conor Bradley. These are the more offensive half players who get up and down the line. Sometimes they can transition into the middle into an overload as well, and then you can have the defender and midfielder pushing up in the regards to cover those spaces. But ultimately the concept is fairly similar. We want our left back and our right back, our full backs and our wing backs to get a lot of the ball and make things happen. Amorim really likes the concept of having that defender transition and be effective in the build-up play. But additionally, in set pieces as well, Amorim is very big on Coates, for example, joining in and making an offensive threat and winning those set pieces, winning the second balls, and going from there with a basis to really push them in, pen them in into opposition half, similar to Klopp. But what is different about Amorim is that there's not the huge emphasis on a starting wide left winger and right winger transitioning into the half spaces. He sticks a player in there from the very start. So you have your two players in there trying to look for the gaps, and it's up to the midfielders to break the lines and penetrate the opposition, whether it's to the left back, square to the left winger, striker forcing the overload on that side so the opposition go in and have to track them as well, opening up the shooting opportunity, which means a Szoboszlai, a Trent Alexander-Arnold, a McAllister will have more shooting opportunities from the outside of the box and more opportunities to get their foot on the ball, to slide a Núñez in and behind the defence closer to the opposition box, because ultimately we start with players in and around the left-sided 10 position and the right-sided 10 position instead of a right winger transitioning into that role waiting for an overlap. What that means though is there's more emphasis on the left wing back and a right wing back to really provide the width in a more traditional sense. In that case, Robertson is very well suited to bombing up and down the left-hand side and whipping in the early balls. So is Tsimikas, because Tsimikas and Robertson do not need to transition into the midfield base, what Gomez has been doing this season, to add the extra man, because the centre back already adds the extra man, which means this is almost perfect for Emperor Endo if you want to play him slightly deeper, libero, sweeper, Beckenbauer role to get into that base. But alternatively, you can trust your Joe Gomez to get into there. You can trust your Konate. If Matip resigns his contract, you can trust your Matip to go in there. In fact, this might be the ideal Matip formation if he proves his fitness after the ACL injury. Konate, Kwanzaa, Van Dijk, Gomez, Endo all have the added ability of carrying the ball, playing the ball in a slightly different way. Van Dijk is more of a long pass, pinpoint pass out to the wing, in which case it would be to a wing back. Endo can penetrate through the short passing, but also loft the ball out to the wide channels as well. McAllister, we know all about his passing range. Bajcetic would be very suited to this role because Bajcetic started as centre-back as well, high ceiling. So there's a lot of flexibility, and we start with players in that pocket 10 position, in the kind of Ødegaard position, and you're kind of sacrificing your inverted winger like Salah or Bukayo Saka, and you're looking for your wing back to provide the width and your striker to work the channel as well. Gyökeres does it very well for Sporting. Núñez would do it very well, and Gakpo, you'd imagine, transitions more to the left, which means it'd be overload on the left instead of our overload to the right now. Gakpo would also suit one of these advanced positions, and it gives breathing space for Fabio Carvalho come back as well. Harvey Elliott would be very, very suited to one of these roles as well, and ultimately it's a different kind of feeling just for the fact that we don't need to transition into those half spaces. You start a player there and rely on your wing backs for width, creativity, and to use their tactical insight. Interestingly enough, that somewhat marginalizes some of the super effective wing play that we've had in recent seasons, whether it's Mane or Lucho Diaz. But remember, we never really played with traditional wingers anyway. It's not like your Riera on one side or your Jermaine Pennant on the other side. Oh my god, those days, right? Was cutting in the Ryan Babel style, the Lucho Diaz style, the Mo Salah style, cutting in onto your strong foot and making something happen. But in this case, you start there and you can transition out wide, in which case the fullbacks cut in as well, which is a very interesting outlook of the play, which means that these players have to be proficient at shooting and creating from the half space internally, which is your Trent Alexander-Arnold, which is your Conor Bradley, not so much your Robertson. Maybe not so much as Tsimikas as well. Tsimikas and Robertson are outside left-back players. Gomez probably suits this particular role better. But once again, Gomez would probably be sitting deeper, and it'd be your Alexis McAllister coming into that position because he can make things happen from that position. I think Núñez is absolutely vital for an Amorim style of player. Otherwise, you're going to have to sign a second striker. But in those advanced 10 positions, looks very, very promising. We've got so much attacking threat, and Szoboszlai could really thrive there. He could get his metrics sky high in that position and really make a name for himself, because he plays number 10 for Hungary and he makes things happen, and he is a metric goal scorer and probably best player since Ferenc Puskás, right? Puskás, what a player. Must be top 5 of all time. Hugely underrated, the galloping major. Left foot like a cannon. Quality players. Magic Magas, Hidecuti and all those players of Hungary. Wow, sensational. I digress a little bit. But yeah, back to the formation. It's a new way of thinking, it's a new way of playing, but Amorim is very defensively responsible as well. He likes to keep things tight. He is not as progressive as Gingen, as Jurgen Klopp pushing players forward, but he really does like to win the ball back as quick as possible. In that regard, Alonso, Amorim and Klopp share the same philosophy, but what Amorim has that Klopp perhaps doesn't have is the ability to make substitutes early in the match, change the way of thinking around substitutes, make the substitutes change the style of play. Klopp kind of pre-plans his substitutes. He likes the 60-minute mark, the 65-minute mark, the 70-minute mark. You bring on your Milner, you bring on your Lallana, you bring on your Henderson, you bring on your Fabinho. Either they start or they're brought on first. Whereas Amorim really puts a lot of faith in the youngsters to show what they're about. Or if he's comfortably winning a game 3-0, 4-0, 3-1, he'll bring on a youngster, give him some minutes, give him some game time, let them establish themselves. Whereas Klopp doesn't really seem to trust the youngsters, I mean the real young youngsters, right, to come on as that first substitute. He'd rather the old head come on to fulfill the function, to see the game out. Now, is that experience, or is that just his coaching style, or is there something behind the scenes where the statistics or metrics prove that that's more effective? Ultimately, Amorim will give the youngsters more time on a substitute role to make an impact in the game and show what they're about than Klopp does. If Klopp thinks you're good enough as a youngster, you may start the FA Cup game, the Europa League game, the Carabao Cup game. But if you're coming on as a substitute, he might give you the last 5 minutes or the last 7 minutes, for example. Troy Ignoni, for example, I think an Amorim, if we're winning 2-0, 3-0, would chuck him on happily at the 60-minute, 70-minute mark, whereas Klopp would probably wait until the 85th minute. That's just the kind of managers they are. Is it tactical exuberance? Is it youthful, backing all the way? I don't know. But it's very exciting for the youngsters because Amorim really takes a fancy to a player and he'll play him. Diomande, for example, Ivory Coast centre-back, question marks around him when he first came in, but Amorim was like, he's my player. I'm bringing him in, 19 years old, starting centre-back, in you go. And now all the global clubs want him, right? And that's what you want. You want your manager to back that young player. It seems with Jurgen Klopp slightly that these youngsters breaking through is a little bit enforced. Conor Bradley came in because Trent Alexander-Arnold's injury. Trent Alexander-Arnold came in because Nathaniel Klein's injury. Keller came in because of Alisson, which is perfectly understandable. Bajcetic maybe breaks that mold slightly, as does Harvey Elliott. But looking at that kind of team back in the day, your Henderson, your Fabinho, your Milner, you need that creative spark in there. We didn't really have much, so Harvey Elliott coming in was a no-brainer. And the way he was performing, outstanding. Same as Bajcetic. We needed somebody with a bit of cheeky flair, get his foot on the ball, not be afraid of the ball like Henderson, wanting to get rid of it straight away. Credit Henderson, by the way, he does that clean-up role fantastically well, and Duracell Bunny, energy, we won a lot with him. But it's a different philosophy in the way that I think Amorim will bring on that youngster for the fact that Go on, son, you're good enough. Get in there and make something happen, as opposed to being enforced to introduce that youngster and then keep them on merit, on form. So just a slight deviation there. I think Amorim is better at getting the youngsters into the first team fray without being forced to, if that makes sense. Now, I've been talking for a while, so it's time to take a swig of some Ethiopian black. Kumi Minamino-san. What a legend. Cup hero. Well, I'm in this little interim break. You know me, the Miyazaki man side. I love my sweets, my sweet tooth galore. This is Klopp. Now, Klopp is a little bit more expensive, high regarded. The transfer fee would be expensive to get Klopp out of a football team. But he's a little bit, you know, long in the tooth now. He's a little bit flatter. Now, I haven't actually tasted this flavour, but I know what Klopp is all about. But what I can say is he just doesn't have that sparkle and that energy. A little bit dull in colour, covered by this brown sugar. I don't know whether it's mung bean paste or something. But you can tell that season after season, giving 110% has worn him down. And he just doesn't have the energy to be vibrant, full and saucy. And really, I think this season he's giving absolutely everything to win it all, and he's giving us a tasty treat in every Liverpool performance. And for some reason the translation of this is mugwort green. Mugwort. It's got red anzu bean inside. Oh god, Klopp's Liverpool. It's so good. But then you have the exciting white rawness, plumpy, fresh, juicy, proper saucy style of Ruben Amorim, who comes in full of vibrance, full of energy, toppings galore because he'll have a lot on his plate to succeed. Amorim comes fully loaded with all 4 barrels and not a sign of wear and tear. With his balls fully loaded, I don't think he'll hold back on transfer target requests with FSG. He'll want layers of unfiltered quality covering his crown jewels, and when he shoots, and when all's said and done, he'll prove that his football is just as delicious as Jurgen Klopp's. Oh my god, that leaves an impression. Why is Amorim so good? So enough about how good Amorim looks. Looks and tastes. Transfers will be mecha exciting. Mecha means very in Japanese. It's kind of a little bit of slang. Because Michael Edwards is in place, Richard Hughes is in place, and the new manager, whether it's Amorim or someone else, I think it will be Ruben Amorim at this stage. They will want to make an impression. They want to start fast. They want to get the transfer targets in, go through a full pre-season, getting the tactics honed into the players, not changing too much, tweaks here and there, but making sure the players adjust to his philosophy and his playing style to get it off on the right footing. I know that you don't usually bring in players from your own team, but Goncalo Inacio looks like a fit for the Liverpool team on the left side of the centre-back roles, which means Van Dijk will have a slightly different role to play because Van Dijk has always played at the left side of centre-back. He predominantly is very good at that switch from the left side of centre-back to the right winger, right? Mo Salah, even an on-rushing Trent, even a Szoboszlai, usually to Mo Salah, breaking opposition's press, drawing him in and pinging it on a trigger point. However, if Goncalo Inacio is there, then Van Dijk has to be the centre of the centre-backs, which means he pushes forward into that midfield role. Now, is he most suited to that? I don't actually think so. So this is an interesting one, whether Van Dijk is one of the old guard that remains or not. And I think he has to remain because he's still in his peak and prime. Sure, that injury took off a yard or two, but he's still the outstanding metric defender of world football at this moment. Mo Salah of the old guard as well. Alisson, Mo Salah, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk, they're the ones with the contract issues, right? But they have won everything. But their hunger is still there. They're the model professional, the ideal player to have in your dressing room to help transition into Liverpool philosophy phase 2, hybrid 3, with the youngsters coming through as well. Bajcetic, Ben Doak, Jayden Dans, Tyler Morton coming back will be very, very exciting. This is something as well. People were crying out previously for a number 6, an experienced number 6, a starting number 6. God Emperor of Mankind, Emperor Endo, the Big E has proven his worth. He's our starting number 6, could even be Libero sweeper. McAllister can play the 6 as well. Bajcetic is a long-term, sky-high potential number 6, although transition to number 8 as well. But Tyler Morton coming back is an ideal number 6. Boy, the techers on that boy is absolutely amazing. James McConnell can play there as well. So do we really need a number 6? Depends how Amorim sees our midfield, but our midfield is absolutely stacked at the moment. For me, for my money, whether it's Alonso or Amorim, and we know that Alonso is now ruled out, I think we need a dedicated number 10, that silky Ødegaard style player who can float in between the lines, come deep to pick up the ball, but also link to be the shadow striker, support striker, attacking midfielder. Szoboszlai is the ideal attacking midfielder, but we need that silkier playmaker. Now, McAllister can play that role, but McAllister can operate between the 10 and the 6 as well, between the lines. I think transitioning in that role is actually McAllister's best role because he's very, very good at roaming and finding those pockets of space. So to have that dedicated number 10 in front of a McAllister next to a Szoboszlai would be absolutely tasty. And you could play Trent there for his offensive capabilities, but I think you lose something by putting him too far forward because he is great shooting and crossing and sliding balls through. But in terms of his range and opening up the pitch, having him in a slightly deeper position suits Trent. And that right wing back slot takes away some of his defensive emphasis, and the right-sided centre-back of the three can cover for him as well as that defensive midfielder of the two on the right-hand side, where there's a kind of Henderson role or Szoboszlai could fulfill there, taking away some of his offensive capabilities somewhat, or an Endo could cover for Trent, for example. I think that number 10 is very important, but also the backup to Darwin Núñez, right? I don't think Gakpo's it. I think Gakpo starts as that left 10 or even slightly deeper, because I don't think Gakpo is the best at running onto a ball into space, and we need someone who does that. Gyökeres does that amazingly well, hassles the opposition, turns over the ball high, presses the opposition, tireless, but with enough quality to hold up the play and bring the others into play, go to the side to link up with that wing back, to link up with that right-sided number 10 or the left-sided number 10. Backup striker who could rotate with Darwin Núñez, I think, is on the cards here with Amorim. Whereas with Jurgen Klopp's system, if he were to remain, it would have been a Mo Salah backup or Mo Salah replacement, because we need someone who really is adept at cutting inside. Elliott is a pseudo Salah, but hasn't got the same kind of pace or the same kind of inside-out jinky dribbling of the prime Salah. He's more of a playmaker from deep. Elliott, he's a hybrid between the right-sided 8 and the right wing slot. So he needs to carve out his own space, in which case he could fulfill that 10 role in Amorim's system on the right-sided 10 slot behind the Darwin Núñez, but he's going to have to grow into that role, because that role puts a huge emphasis on getting the assists and the goals tally up. I think it's going to be a very, very exciting transfer window. Uncut gems could be uncovered here, because Michael Edwards is back in place. Richard Hughes with his massive network book, his catalogue of wonder kids, wonderkinds throughout the ages, throughout the continent. I'm very excited to see what gem he can uncover. Archie Gray at Leeds is obviously fantastic, but the big guns are all after him. It'd be a hard sell and big money to try and sign him in, but I do think it'll probably be a centre-back coming in. Matip could renew because he so fits an Amorim system so much with his ability to join into the midfield and progress forward and break the lines if he can prove his fitness as well. Thiago Alcantara for me is out the door. I don't think he can prove his fitness. Credit to him, quality player, silky player. His body just let him down, but lovely lad, and he really gave it his all. He never shirked a challenge. His physicality was a big surprise to me as well, but quality techers, and that Porto goal, never seen a sweeter strike than that. Beautiful technique, and Lucho Diaz as a play partner in training as well. Joga Bonita. But one thing I'm very much looking forward to Amorim bringing in is the ability to make those young players step up into established stars. Quansah obviously came in and now he's established as part of the first team. Tyler Morton, Bajcetic, but then beyond that Bobby Clark, right? That Kumas, that Ben Doak, that Jayden Dans forming the core of our quality unit. Mateusz Musilowski might have a renaissance. Cannonier, all these youngsters coming in. Troy Ignoni, Nallo in the backline as well. Big things expected of him. The future is so bright. And for me, Amorim just fits. He's got something about him that oozes class. You give him time. Do you remember old guy, João Carlos Teixeira, right? I thought he was a quality player, pretty silky, clean on the ball, got a bit of attacking threat, not the most pace, but he's a traditional kind of playmaker, right? He had a stint under Amorim and under Klopp, and he knows the systems are different, but he backs Amorim to succeed in Premier League as well. Just got to give him time, right? And to me, it just seems that time is the key thing. Give Amorim time, and to me, it just feels as though he will succeed. He will win things. He will find a way, whether it's in the current Pep Guardiola era or the post-Pep Guardiola era. Amorim just seems like a winner. He seems a bit like a sore loser. In fact, I'd be confident he has snide remarks about referees or opposition managers, a little bit less political and huggy, nice, respectful than Jurgen Klopp, because he has a little bit of a mean streak in him. He looks, I don't know, looks fun, looks exciting, looks fresh, looks saucy, tasty. I did mention tasty back earlier in the video, but I think Amorim would be here for the long run, because if he gets to that pinnacle of world football in the Liverpool hot seat with Liverpool 2.0, which looks absolutely amazingly stacked, in terms of talent. Only maybe Real Madrid have as competitive a squad because they're hoarding one of the kids in the next generation, right? Endrick looks an absolute star as well. I think Amorim will bring about a trophy-filled next 5 years at least, and he could be one that really leaves a lasting dynasty because he really looks like a sore loser. He doesn't like to lose, and he really no success. And the fact that he was poached from Braga, right, into Sporting, and the fact that Liverpool have come calling straight away, if it is indeed Amorim, if he is the choice of Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes, and the data points to him being statistically the best fit and the one to lead our golden generation, then I'd fully back him. And I'm sure the rest of the fan base, having Xabi Alonso pull out, it's probably going for Amorim as well, right? A lot of the ex-pros are really leaning towards De Zerbi, but obviously the article came out lately that De Zerbi is not one of the front runners. So you have Amorim and who? Nagelsmann? It's a little bit of an odd fit because he's not as imposing and he hasn't got the biggest of attitudes, and we haven't got a dry ski slope or they can venture off to, you know, to vent as well. I don't know. That's funny news. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Amorim, different than Klopp's Liverpool. I think Klopp did magnificently well with all his comebacks against Dortmund, the Lovren header against Barcelona, the Origi Shaqiri story. But I think Amorim will play some of the more fringe exciting players, the Takumi Minamino, the Xherdan Shaqiri. I think Amorim is more likely to play that kind of player, for better or for worse, because it's more fun really, rather than Klopp, who trusts the old guard a lot more, the Milners, the Lallanas, the steady Eddies to fulfill the function. He goes with experience, he values that very, very highly to see the game out. No frills approach, this ruthless German efficiency, whereas Amorim, I think, has a bit of Latino flair. Make sure you smash the like on the video, helps the video get seen. The channel is growing constantly. Thank you so much for supporting all the way. Lots of exciting stuff coming up. I don't want to reveal too much, but really, I have a list of about 20-25 exciting features and other stuff that I want to get on board as soon as the house is built. By the way, I'm very, very into the analytical side of football and the tactical side of it. I've read many, many books, but I want to get one of those interactive software pieces. I think James Olcott uses a really, really good interactive system. Let me know if you know any of those interactive systems that I can purchase, software or hardware or whatever. I'm sure in Japan they're very innovative as well. There must be some interactive boards that I can look into as well, but very keen to do that for you guys. And yep, Miyazaki Man version 2 launching very, very soon. We're going to have the proper studio. Look forward to it, guys. Domo arigato. Thank you once again. Ja ne, Miyazaki Man ichiban.